So, so what are some, I know it's been described in the past for the Sasani or Eshikani, like certain abilities that manifest like telekinesis and telepathy and like a lot of things and quasi-physicalness. What are some other abilities that have not been spoken about in previous transmissions?
Well, we can speak sound in a way that is visual. In other words, we can project frequencies that can manifest visually. Does that make sense?
Could you expand on that?
We can project energetic frequencies in our reality that to you would translate as visual geometric patterns. But it specifically emanates from vibration. That's why we use the word speaking, because that's a very similar type of ability that you all actually have. The only difference is you can't see those vibrations. We can. Every time you're speaking, you're projecting geometric patterns. That's why we use that language, so you can relate to it. We're able to project vibratory patterns of energy that translate visually as geometries and sometimes even as pictures, creating the idea of living images with our will, with our intention, with our energy field. We're able to do this. You all do the same thing. It's just that you can't see it.
I'm getting the image in my head of what you're like. I'm getting the connection of what you're saying in my head.
Excellent.
So in terms of relation, I know Bashar is 10,000 years ahead in our vibrationally speaking. Where do you place in that same frequency range, upline from us? Like,
it's somewhat similar, more or less. So you can see it in that way.
Are you in a similar time frame or just
exactly? Yes, that's why it's similar. Yes.
Okay. Also, I've heard a few Sasani in the past that.
One moment. We will clarify with one last detail here.
Okay.
The frequency of time, you could say, that I'm entangled with,
yeah,
represents the threshold of my people transitioning into complete non-physicality. That's why earlier I specified that I am in many ways outside of time.
That makes sense.
Because I'm standing in the center of that threshold. So there is a slight difference here, but that's specifically because of the level the channel is tuning to. It's more relevant for him in that way to connect more to non-physicality. So he is manifesting increasingly less and less and less quasi-physical versions of me. And he's beginning to manifest increasingly more and more and more borderline non-physical versions of me. Eventually, versions of me that are completely non-physical will begin to come through.
That's really interesting. So I know you're interacting with spirits at all times. So at that point, would the Sasani civilization completely transition to non-physicality?
Exactly. Yes, we will become a spirit civilization.
So no longer quasi-physical, just straight.
No longer quasi-physical, even though we would still have the idea of what we would call energy bodies that could densify or de-densify at will. We would no longer, in that sense, be bound to the idea of what you would call a material universe or a quasi-physical universe. We would be granted access to all types of different realms that we could immerse ourselves in.
Oh, okay, that's really fun.
Yes, exactly.
Really exciting.
You're all doing the same thing. Here's something you may not be aware of. All beings are doing that. All of you. Animal kind, humankind, all beings are on this trajectory. That's where evolution's leading you all. You are all in the process of returning to the state of being you were in before incarnation. However, you're not returning to exactly that same state. You are returning, so to say, to a level, but the type of body is completely different. Think of it like this. Before you take on a body, it's like you're an orb. You are just pure energy.
Yeah.
To conserve energy, you take on a body.
Really?
Yes, this is why incarnation happens. To preserve the energy that you are. And when you have a body, you can accumulate energy. You accumulate energy through experience, through nutrition, through spiritual practices and technologies. You have the ability to cultivate the energy that you bring into the physical reality experience. And when an entire species evolves into light beings, you bring the body with you. This is what your biblical texts are talking about when they talk about someone ascending into heaven. They're bringing the physicality with them, the quasi-physicality with them, but they're converting it into energy. So they're able to return to that level, the pre-incarnational level, with an enhanced energy body. As you know, your body is the microcosm of the macrocosm. So it unlocks for you all types of different experiences you otherwise wouldn't have access to. You're capable of more. So you're all on this trajectory. This is what evolution is leading you all towards.
Well, I already have, like, I'm already able to switch between being in spirit and also physical and non-physical. And I have memories from before I was in this incarnation of being on that side of things, like very clear, very distinct memories that are like, this is not physical.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. And you are allowing for this world to become more like that realm.
Yeah.
Through the idea of your evolution. Because as you evolve, you become less and less dense. So this realm begins to mirror that pre-incarnational realm.
Sort of like before I learned to manage the energy intake that I actually was absorbing, I had a few people that could see what I was kind of absorbing way too much energy at one moment when I was at like a dance thing. It was very, we'll say, unhinged energy, not very grounded energy. I was glowing this gold light that they could see and I could see, but they walked up and told me I was amazing, but I'm like, I was scared as hell in that moment.
Yes, because you were in many ways pulling in energy from a rather chaotic environment, a dance party.
Yeah.
So the energy is very mobile. It's very stimulating. So when you pull that into you, you take on its likeness. This is why oftentimes high-level energy work is done in isolation or in temples, because you're pulling in that type of energy. Nothing wrong with pulling in energy from a dance party, but obviously it can create certain effects as you experienced.
So many, also going on along the same line of questioning. So will many of us, like me, Tyler, and a lot of people who follow this sort of information, start more shifting to being more of the fourth?
Depends on what you do with it. The information in itself does nothing.
Yeah, no, I get that.
It's all about what you do with it. So if you apply the information in a way that specifically develops your energy body, then yes, absolutely. But if you just allow for it to be intellectually stimulating and don't really do much with it, then you're still really operating at the same level as other people whom are not really doing energy body specific evolutionary practices.
What would be something to more for people to actually, I know the
most basic thing to do, and again, it's not complete, but it's a starting point, breath work. Pranayama, as you call it in your yogic traditions. That's the most basic place to start if you wish to build up the energy body. It's not the place to finish, so to say.
No.
Move on from it, incorporate it, bring it with you as you continue to evolve. But that's a starting point, and you can use it at any level in your journey, no matter how basic or no matter how advanced you are. When you control the breath, you control the mind. When you control the mind, you control your thoughts, you control your emotions, you control your biases and your opinions. Breath is akin to the element you call the Akash, the spatial element, which represents in many ways the space that spirit uses to manifest. So breath connects you to the most subtle levels. And that's why it develops the energy body. It's connecting you to, in many ways, the source level, which is pure life force. So that pure life force then becomes infused into your energy body. So it's something you can do each day in that sense to really develop yourself. And there's more practices. As you raise your frequency through these types of things, you'll attract in different guides or teachers or methods, systems that you can use.